May 14th, 1945. Shuri Heights, Okinawa. The monsoon rain hammered the coral ridges as Corporal Tommy Martinez crouched behind a shattered stone wall, his SCR-300 radio crackling with coordinates that would determine whether his squad lived through the next 10 minutes. Above him, the ancient Okinawan tombs and cave networks stretched like a fortress carved from living rock, each opening potentially harboring Japanese defenders who had turned the island's geography into a death trap for advancing American forces. The radio's static cleared as Martinez received confirmation. Baker Company, this is fire direction. Target designated Cave Charlie 7. Blowtorch and Corkscrew approved. Execute on your signal. The message was clinical, professional, but Martinez knew what those code words meant. First fire, then demolition. First, the M2 flamethrower would turn the cave's darkness into a furnace. Then combat engineers would seal what remained with satchel charges and TNT. Behind Martinez, Private First Class Eddie Kowalski checked the fuel pressure on his M2 flamethrower, the weapon's distinctive silhouette marking him as one of the most valuable and vulnerable Marines in the assault team. The M2 carried enough napalm-thickened fuel to burn for 43 seconds of continuous firing, but Kowalski had learned that 3-second bursts were more effective. Short blasts that conserved fuel while maximizing psychological impact on defenders who had never experienced weapons designed specifically to eliminate cave positions. The cave mouth that faced Martinez's squad represented everything that made Okinawa different from previous Pacific campaigns. This was not jungle fighting where visibility and maneuver determined tactical success. This was siege warfare against an enemy who had abandoned mobility for the protection of stone, betting that American firepower advantages would be neutralized by terrain that channeled every assault into predictable killing zones, where Japanese machine guns and mortars could achieve devastating effectiveness. Japanese defenders inside Cave Charlie 7 had been monitoring American movements for 2 hours, their Type 99 machine gun positioned to sweep the approaches while mortars registered on every piece of cover that might protect advancing Marines. They expected another frontal assault, like the ones that had cost American forces hundreds of casualties during the previous week's fighting. They were prepared for infantry charges, artillery barrages, and even tank attacks that had characterized American tactics throughout the Pacific campaign. What they were not prepared for was the systematic coordination that American forces had developed specifically for cave warfare, radio-controlled fires that could concentrate overwhelming force on individual positions while protecting assault teams through precise timing and mutual support. The Japanese had dug deep to escape American firepower, but in doing so, they had created confined spaces where fire became more lethal than bullets, and where sealed entrances became death traps rather than defensive positions. Martinez keyed his radio handset and transmitted the execute order that would demonstrate how American tactical innovation had transformed Okinawa's cave systems from Japanese advantages into American targeting opportunities. The message was brief, professional, and deadly. Fire direction, Baker Company, commencing Blowtorch and Corkscrew. Time now. If your enemy hides in stone, do you attack the cave or the air they breathe? The Battle of Okinawa represented the culmination of Japanese defensive evolution throughout the Pacific War, as Imperial forces abandoned the beach defense tactics that had failed on previous islands in favor of defense in depth that utilized Okinawa's unique terrain to maximize American casualties while prolonging resistance. Japanese engineers had spent months converting the island's natural cave systems, ancient tombs, and limestone ridges into interconnected fortress complexes that could withstand conventional artillery bombardment while providing concealed firing positions that dominated all approaches. The Shuri defense line anchored Japanese resistance around terrain features that included the ancient Shuri Castle, Maeda Escarpment, and dozens of smaller ridges honeycombed with caves that provided both protection and concealment for defenders who could emerge, fire, and disappear before American forces could respond effectively. These positions were mutually supporting, with overlapping fields of fire that created killing zones where traditional infantry assaults suffered prohibitive casualties while achieving minimal territorial gains. American tactical doctrine had evolved throughout the Pacific Campaign to emphasize combined arms coordination, but Okinawa's cave systems presented unique challenges that required new approaches to assault operations. Previous island campaigns had featured relatively open terrain, where American advantages in mobility, firepower, and air support could be fully utilized. But Okinawa's defensive positions negated many of these advantages while forcing American forces into predictable attack patterns that Japanese defenders could counter effectively. The development of systematic cave clearing procedures represented American tactical innovation under pressure, as Marine and Army units developed coordinated techniques that integrated infantry, engineers, artillery, and specialized weapons in carefully orchestrated sequences designed to neutralize cave positions while minimizing American casualties. These procedures became known as Blowtorch and Corkscrew, flamethrowers, followed by demolitions that eliminated defensive positions permanently rather than temporarily suppressing them. The M2 flamethrower that became central to American cave-clearing operations represented significant advances in weapon design and tactical employment that reflected lessons learned from earlier Pacific campaigns where cave positions had proven difficult to eliminate using conventional weapons. The M2's improved range, fuel capacity, and reliability made it practical for infantry employment, while its psychological impact on cave defenders often achieved results that exceeded its purely physical capabilities. American logistical capabilities enabled sustained cave-clearing operations through reliable supply of specialized equipment, ammunition, and replacement personnel that Japanese forces could not match despite their defensive advantages. The industrial capacity that supported M2 flamethrower production, napalm fuel supply, and demolition materials represented resource advantages that multiplied American tactical effectiveness while enabling sustained offensive operations that gradually wore down Japanese defensive capabilities. The training programs that prepared American assault teams for cave warfare emphasized coordination, communication, and specialized techniques that reflected professional military education and institutional learning from previous campaigns. Marine and Army units developed standard operating procedures that enabled rapid deployment of effective tactics while maintaining the flexibility necessary to adapt to local conditions and unexpected challenges. The intelligence capabilities that supported American cave-clearing operations included detailed mapping of Japanese positions, analysis of defensive patterns, and coordination with civilian sources who possessed knowledge of Okinawa's terrain and cave systems. This intelligence enabled American forces to plan assaults that exploited Japanese weaknesses while avoiding predictable approaches that defenders had prepared to counter. The medical and evacuation systems that supported cave assault teams reflected American commitment to minimizing casualties through immediate treatment and rapid evacuation of wounded personnel. These systems enabled aggressive tactics that might otherwise have been prohibitively costly while maintaining unit cohesion and morale during sustained combat operations. The psychological warfare aspects of cave-clearing operations were carefully considered by American planners who recognized that demonstrating the futility of cave defense might encourage Japanese surrender while reducing American casualties. The systematic elimination of supposedly impregnable positions created psychological pressure that complemented physical destruction in achieving tactical objectives. The technological advantages that American forces possessed in cave warfare extended beyond individual weapons to include communication equipment, navigation aids, and specialized tools that enabled coordinated operations under conditions where Japanese forces relied primarily on static defense and limited counterattack capabilities. These technological disparities reflected broader American advantages in industrial capacity and scientific research that had accumulated throughout the war. The strategic implications of successful cave-clearing operations extended beyond Okinawa to planning for the anticipated invasion of Japan, where similar terrain and defensive tactics were expected to characterize Japanese resistance. The techniques developed on Okinawa would provide templates for operations against the Japanese home islands while demonstrating American capabilities to Japanese leaders who were considering surrender options. May 14, 1945, 14:23 hours. Cave, Charlie 7, Shuri Heights. The preparatory fires began exactly on schedule as Corporal Martinez's squad took cover behind coral ledges, while American artillery and mortars delivered precisely targeted rounds designed to suppress Japanese positions without destroying the cave mouth that remained the primary objective. The explosions echoed across the ridgeline as dirt and coral fragments showered down on Marines who pressed themselves against whatever shelter they could find. Sergeant Bill Murphy, the squad leader, used hand signals to coordinate movement as the artillery fires shifted to alternate targets, and the assault team prepared to advance toward Cave Charlie 7. Murphy had participated in 17 cave-clearing operations during the previous 3 weeks, developing expertise that reflected American institutional learning and tactical adaptation under combat conditions. Each operation followed similar patterns while incorporating lessons learned from previous assaults. Private First Class Kowalski checked his M2 flamethrower one final time, ensuring that fuel lines were clear, igniter systems were functional, and protective equipment was properly positioned. The M2 weighed 68 pounds when fully fueled and required careful handling to prevent accidents that could endanger the entire assault team. Kowalski's assistant, Private Danny Chen, carried additional fuel tanks and spare parts while maintaining security during the approach to target. The approach to Cave Charlie 7 followed white tape that combat engineers had laid during the previous night's reconnaissance, marking safe routes through areas that had been cleared of mines and booby traps. The tape also indicated optimal firing positions for supporting weapons and evacuation routes for wounded personnel, reflecting systematic planning that characterized American operations throughout the Okinawa campaign. Marine riflemen established overwatch positions that could suppress any Japanese attempt to defend the cave mouth, while protecting the flamethrower team during its vulnerable approach phase. These positions were carefully coordinated to provide mutual support without creating interference between different weapon systems that might reduce overall effectiveness or endanger friendly forces through friendly fire incidents. The Sherman tank, positioned hull down on a nearby ridge, provided additional fire support while remaining protected from Japanese anti-tank weapons that might be concealed in adjacent cave positions. The tank's crew maintained radio contact with assault teams and could deliver precisely aimed high-explosive rounds against specific targets without endangering friendly forces operating in close proximity to enemy positions. At 14:31 hours, Murphy signaled the flamethrower team forward as supporting fires reached crescendo and Japanese defensive fires were temporarily suppressed. Kowalski and Chen moved carefully toward Cave Charlie 7, using terrain features and smoke from explosions to conceal their movement while remaining alert for any sign of Japanese defensive activity that might indicate the assault had been detected. The cave mouth appeared as a black opening in the coral ridge, approximately 8 feet wide and 6 feet high, with evidence of defensive preparation including firing ports, ammunition storage areas, and concealed positions for defending personnel. Intelligence reports indicated that the cave extended approximately 50 meters into the ridge and connected to adjacent positions through tunnels that could enable Japanese forces to reinforce or evacuate as tactical situations developed. Kowalski positioned himself 25 meters from the cave mouth, the optimal range for M2 employment that balanced effectiveness against vulnerability to Japanese defensive fires. At this distance, the flamethrower could deliver concentrated streams of burning fuel that would penetrate deep into the cave, while providing sufficient time for the operator to seek cover if Japanese forces attempted to counterattack during the assault. Murphy's hand signal initiated the flamethrower attack as Kowalski triggered a 3-second burst that sent a stream of ignited napalm directly into Cave Charlie 7's opening. The orange flames illuminated the cave interior while generating intense heat and thick smoke that would make the position untenable for any defending personnel who had survived the initial blast of burning fuel. The psychological impact was immediate, as screams from inside the cave indicated that Japanese defenders had been caught unprepared for the intensity and penetration of American flamethrower attack. Some defenders attempted to escape through alternate exits, but American overwatch positions had been positioned to cover these routes and prevented any organized withdrawal from the targeted position. A second flamethrower burst followed 30 seconds later, ensuring complete coverage of the cave interior while providing time for the first application to achieve maximum effect. The burning napalm adhered to surfaces throughout the cave, creating sustained fires that would continue burning for several minutes while consuming oxygen that defending personnel required for survival. Japanese attempts to return fire were ineffective due to smoke, flames, and confusion within the cave system. The few rounds that emerged from Cave Charlie 7 were poorly aimed and quickly suppressed by American small arms fire that prevented any organized defense of the position. The systematic nature of American assault procedures had achieved tactical surprise, despite Japanese awareness of the impending attack. Combat engineers moved forward immediately after the second flamethrower attack, carrying satchel charges and TNT designed to seal Cave Charlie 7 permanently and prevent any future use of the position by Japanese forces. The engineers worked quickly while flames continued burning inside the cave, placing explosive charges at strategic points that would cause maximum structural damage when detonated. The demolition charges detonated simultaneously at 14:37 hours, creating a thunderous explosion that collapsed the cave mouth and sealed the entrance with tons of coral and limestone debris. The blast was felt throughout the surrounding area and marked the successful completion of another blowtorch and corkscrew operation that had eliminated a Japanese defensive position permanently. Smoke and dust rose from the sealed cave as Marines confirmed that Cave Charlie 7 no longer existed as a tactical factor in Japanese defensive planning. The systematic elimination of such positions was gradually reducing Japanese defensive capabilities while demonstrating American tactical competence and technological superiority in cave warfare operations. Within minutes of sealing Cave Charlie 7, the psychological impact rippled through adjacent Japanese positions, as defenders realized that their supposedly impregnable cave systems could be systematically eliminated by American tactics and technology they had not anticipated. The sound of the explosion and the sight of smoke rising from what had been a key defensive position created fear and uncertainty among Japanese forces who had staked their defensive plans on the protection that cave systems provided. Japanese communications intercepted by American intelligence services revealed confusion and alarm about American cave clearing capabilities that exceeded Japanese understanding of flamethrower technology and tactical employment. Radio messages between Japanese units described American weapons that could burn through stone and tactics that seemed designed specifically to counter cave defense systems that Japanese engineers had considered immune to conventional attack. The immediate tactical result was the withdrawal of Japanese forces from several adjacent cave positions, as defenders recognized that remaining in confined spaces made them vulnerable to American flamethrower attacks that could eliminate entire squad-sized units within minutes. This voluntary abandonment of prepared positions represented a significant psychological victory that multiplied the physical effects of successful cave-clearing operations. American medical personnel reported increased numbers of Japanese casualties from burns, smoke inhalation, and psychological trauma that reflected the devastating effectiveness of flamethrower attacks against personnel trapped in confined spaces. The medical evidence confirmed that M2 flamethrowers were achieving their intended tactical effects while creating casualty patterns that differed significantly from those produced by conventional weapons. The success of systematic cave-clearing operations enabled American forces to advance at rates that exceeded planning projections while suffering casualties that were lower than anticipated for operations against prepared defensive positions. The combination of reduced American losses and accelerated tactical progress demonstrated the strategic value of developing specialized techniques for specific tactical challenges. Prisoner interrogations revealed that Japanese forces had not anticipated American employment of flamethrowers in systematic cave-clearing operations, despite their awareness of American flamethrower capabilities from previous campaigns. Japanese defensive planning had focused on conventional assault tactics and had not developed countermeasures for coordinated flamethrower and demolition attacks that eliminated positions permanently rather than temporarily suppressing them. The logistical implications became apparent as American supply systems demonstrated their ability to sustain specialized operations through reliable delivery of flamethrower fuel, demolition materials, and replacement equipment that enabled continuous cave-clearing operations across multiple sectors simultaneously. The industrial capacity that supported these operations exceeded Japanese logistical capabilities and enabled sustained offensive pressure. American tactical innovation accelerated as successful cave-clearing techniques were rapidly disseminated throughout Marine and Army units operating on Okinawa. After action reports and informal communication between units enabled rapid adoption of effective procedures while eliminating tactics that had proven ineffective or unnecessarily costly during initial operations. The propaganda value of successful cave-clearing operations was recognized by American psychological warfare specialists who used documentation of sealed caves and defeated positions to demonstrate the futility of Japanese resistance while encouraging surrender by forces that remained in defensive positions. The visual evidence of systematically eliminated cave systems provided compelling proof of American tactical superiority. Japanese defensive doctrine underwent emergency revision as commanders attempted to develop countermeasures for American cave-clearing tactics that had proven devastatingly effective against positions that had been considered secure. New defensive procedures emphasized alternative positions, improved ventilation systems, and modified tactical employment that reflected recognition of American capabilities. Civilian populations trapped in cave systems during combat operations were increasingly routed to safe corridors as American forces developed procedures that distinguish between military and civilian occupants while maintaining tactical effectiveness against legitimate military targets. These humanitarian considerations reflected American values while reducing civilian casualties that might complicate post-war occupation and reconstruction efforts. The engineering requirements for cave clearing operations demonstrated American technical competence and industrial capacity while requiring specialized equipment and expertise that Japanese forces could not match. American combat engineers developed innovative demolition techniques while maintaining safety standards that protected friendly forces during dangerous operations in confined spaces. The intelligence gathered from cleared cave systems provided valuable information about Japanese defensive capabilities, supply systems, and morale conditions that informed American tactical planning while revealing weaknesses in Japanese positions that could be exploited in future operations. The systematic documentation of captured positions contributed to American understanding of Japanese defensive methods. The cumulative effect of successful cave clearing operations was the gradual degradation of Japanese defensive capabilities as key positions were eliminated permanently rather than temporarily neutralized. This systematic reduction of defensive strength created tactical opportunities for American breakthrough operations, while reducing Japanese ability to conduct effective counterattacks against advancing American forces. The systematic employment of M2 flamethrowers in cave-clearing operations represented a fundamental shift in American military doctrine that recognized the need for specialized weapons and tactics to counter defensive systems that negated conventional firepower advantages. This evolution reflected institutional learning capabilities that enabled American forces to adapt quickly to changing tactical conditions while maintaining operational effectiveness against innovative enemy defensive methods. The technological sophistication of American flamethrower systems exceeded comparable weapons available to any other military force during World War II, incorporating advances in fuel chemistry, ignition systems, and delivery mechanisms that maximize tactical effectiveness while maintaining operational reliability under combat conditions. The napalm fuel used in M2 systems represented chemical engineering advances that created more effective incendiary effects than previous flame weapon fuels. The industrial capacity that supported M2 flamethrower production and deployment demonstrated American manufacturing capabilities that could rapidly produce specialized military equipment in quantities sufficient to equip units throughout the Pacific Theater. The standardization of flamethrower components and fuel systems enabled efficient logistics support while maintaining quality control standards that ensured consistent performance under combat conditions. The tactical integration of flamethrowers with conventional weapons systems created combined arms capabilities that exceeded the sum of individual weapon effectiveness while providing tactical flexibility that could adapt to diverse combat situations. The coordination between flamethrower teams, supporting fires, and demolition specialists demonstrated advanced tactical thinking that reflected professional military education and institutional expertise. The training systems that prepared American personnel for specialized cave warfare operations represented educational advances that enabled rapid skill development while maintaining safety standards essential for operations involving dangerous weapons and procedures. The standardized training curricula ensured consistent tactical employment while providing flexibility for local adaptation to specific operational requirements. The logistical innovations required to support sustained flamethrower operations included specialized supply chains, maintenance procedures, and safety protocols that reflected American organizational capabilities and attention to detail. The reliable delivery of fuel, spare parts, and replacement equipment enabled continuous operations while maintaining performance standards that were essential for tactical success. The intelligence applications of cave clearing operations provided valuable information about enemy capabilities, defensive methods, and technological limitations that informed broader strategic planning while contributing to American understanding of Japanese military culture and tactical thinking. The systematic analysis of captured positions revealed patterns that could be exploited in future operations. The psychological warfare applications of flamethrower operations demonstrated American understanding of morale factors and cultural considerations that influenced enemy behavior and decision-making. The deliberate use of flame weapons against defensive positions created fear effects that exceeded their purely physical capabilities while encouraging surrender by forces that recognized the futility of continued resistance. The engineering advances required for effective cave-clearing operations included innovations in demolition techniques, structural analysis, and safety procedures that reflected American technical competence and scientific methodology. The development of precise demolition methods that could seal caves permanently while protecting friendly forces demonstrated expertise in multiple technical disciplines. The medical advances that resulted from treating flamethrower casualties contributed to improved understanding of burn treatment, smoke inhalation therapy, and trauma care that would benefit military and civilian medical practice throughout the post-war period. The systematic documentation of casualty patterns provided scientific data that advanced medical knowledge while improving treatment capabilities. The strategic implications of successful cave-clearing operations extended beyond Okinawa to planning for anticipated operations against the Japanese home islands, where similar terrain and defensive tactics were expected to characterize Japanese resistance. The techniques developed on Okinawa provided proven methods that could be applied to future operations while demonstrating American capabilities that might influence Japanese decisions about continued resistance. The international implications of American tactical innovation in cave warfare established technological and doctrinal leadership that would influence military thinking throughout the post-war period, while demonstrating American adaptability and institutional learning capabilities that exceeded those of other military forces. The transformation of Okinawa's cave systems from Japanese strongholds into eliminated defensive positions demonstrated the power of American tactical innovation to overcome seemingly insurmountable defensive advantages through systematic application of appropriate technology and coordination. The caves the Japanese forces had expected to provide impregnable protection instead became death traps when confronted by American methods that had been specifically developed to counter cave defense tactics. The irony was historically profound and strategically decisive in ways that extended far beyond individual tactical encounters to fundamental questions about the relationship between defensive positions and offensive capabilities in modern warfare. Japanese forces that had abandoned mobility for the protection of stone discovered that American ingenuity could turn their greatest defensive assets into tactical liabilities through weapons and techniques they had never anticipated. The human dimension of cave warfare revealed truths about courage, innovation, and the willingness of American forces to develop new methods under the pressure of combat conditions that demanded immediate solutions to tactical challenges. Marines and soldiers who had trained for conventional warfare adapted quickly to specialized operations that required different skills and equipment while maintaining the coordination essential for success. The strategic implications extended far beyond Okinawa to fundamental questions about Japanese defensive strategy and the viability of continued resistance against American forces that had demonstrated their ability to overcome any defensive system through appropriate application of technology, tactics, and coordination. The systematic elimination of cave positions provided concrete evidence of American capabilities that Japanese leaders could not ignore. The ultimate testament to American success lay in the gradual reduction of Japanese defensive capabilities as cave systems that had been expected to exact prohibitive casualties from American forces instead became targets that could be eliminated systematically through proven methods. The transformation of defensive advantages into tactical opportunities demonstrated American adaptability and technological superiority. Okinawa's caves were meant to erase America's advantages, but instead they became the stage where method beat myth, proving that American forces could adapt to any challenge through institutional learning, technological innovation, and tactical excellence. The coordination that turned flamethrowers into precision instruments and caves into sealed monuments demonstrated that American strength lay not just in individual weapons, but in the systematic application of coordinated capabilities. In the end, not a single blow, but thousands of coordinated local brutal minutes bent the battle's arc toward American victory while establishing tactical principles that would influence military operations for decades. The respect for tactical innovation and systematic methodology that characterized American cave-clearing operations proved that superior coordination could overcome any defensive advantage when applied with appropriate technology and determination. Stories like this reveal how American tactical innovation could transform apparent disadvantages into overwhelming advantages through systematic application of appropriate methods and technology. In the next episode, we'll explore another hidden aspect of American military capabilities that caught enemy forces completely unprepared. Subscribe now to uncover more of World War II's secret operations and technological innovations that changed the course of history.